ExamPrep.School. Alaska Casualty Insurance Producer Exam. Exam code ExamPrep.School or OPCas05. There are 4 practice exams in this series. This video covers Practice Exam 1. The first 20 questions are free. In this video, we will be covering the following major categories for Practice Exam 1. Alaska rules pertinent to casualty only. Insurance terms and related concepts. Laws, rules, and regulations common to all lines. Policy provisions. Types of policies, bonds, and related terms. Let's walk through the format. I'll read each question and its choices. Let's get started. Question 1. According to a standard CGL policy, which of the following is encompassed by the definition of bodily injury under coverage A? A. Unintentional infliction of emotional distress. B. Intentional harm or mental distress without physical manifestation. C. Sickness, disease, physical injury, and death. D. Damage to real or personal property. A countdown circle appears in the top right. Once it completes, the answer is revealed. You can pause at any time if you'd like longer to think. If you'd like additional practice covering more topics, see the description for our book. The correct answer is C. Coverage A defines bodily injury as bodily harm, including sickness, disease, and any resulting death, whereas other listed items fall outside that scope. Reason A is not correct. Emotional distress alone without physical injury does not satisfy the bodily injury criteria. Reason B is not correct. Intentional harm or pure mental distress without physical injury is not included in the bodily injury definition. Reason D is not correct. Property damage pertains to coverage A's separate property damage coverage, not bodily injury. Question 2. Which of the following offenses is covered under coverage B, personal and advertising injury, of a standard CGL policy? A. Liability assumed under contract. B. Physical injury caused by negligence. C. Malicious prosecution. D. Environmental pollution damage. The correct answer is C. Coverage B protects against personal and advertising injury offenses, such as malicious prosecution, whereas the other options fall under different coverages or are excluded. Reason A is not correct. Liability assumed under contract is typically excluded from coverage B. Reason B is not correct. Physical injury from negligence is insured under coverage A, not coverage B. Reason D is not correct. Pollution damage is excluded under standard CGL policies. Question 3. A retail store insured under a standard commercial general liability policy has several individuals injured on the premises. Which of the following injured persons would not be eligible for medical payments under coverage C? A. A part-time sales clerk stocking shelves during a shift. B. An independent inventory auditor contracted to check stock levels. C. A cousin visiting to pick up a gift purchase. D. A licensed electrician volunteering for a community fundraiser held in the store. The correct answer is A. Coverage C excludes employees injured in the course of their employment. Third parties and volunteers are covered regardless of fault. Reason B is not correct. Contracted auditors are non-employees and thus eligible for medical payments under coverage C. Reason C is not correct. Visiting family members are third parties and covered regardless of fault under coverage C. Reason D is not correct. Volunteers are not employees and qualify for medical payments under coverage C. Question 4. A general contractor had an occurrence-based CGL policy from January 1, 2010 to December 31, 2013. Then switched to a claims-made CGL policy with a retroactive date of January 1, 2013, running through December 31, 2016. A defective installation in December 2012 caused bodily injury discovered in 2012, but led to a lawsuit filed in March 2015. Under which policy will coverage apply? A. Occurrence-based policy in effect during the accident date. B. Claims-made policy in effect when the lawsuit was filed. C. Neither policy covers because the claim was filed after expiration. D. Both policies provide coverage for this claim. The correct answer is A. An occurrence-based policy covers injuries that occur during its term, regardless of when the claim is made. The defective installation occurred within the occurrence policy period. Reason B is not correct. Claims-made policies require the injury and suit to occur after the retroactive date and during the policy period, which is not met here. Reason C is not correct. An occurrence policy still covers because the injury date fell within its effective period, so coverage exists. Reason D is not correct. Only the occurrence-based policy applies. Claims-made policies do not provide dual coverage. Question 5. A landscaping company enters into a written contract requiring a property manager to be named as an additional insured on the company's CGL policy. Which of the following fits the definition of an additional insured under that requirement? A. An employee of the property manager injured due to the company's operations. B. A passerby injured on a public sidewalk adjacent to the property. C. A customer of the property manager injured on unrelated premises. D. The property manager for liability arising out of the company's work operations. The correct answer is D. Additional insured status extends only to the named entity for liability arising out of the insured's operations, per the contractual requirement. Reason A is not correct. Employees of the additional insured are not automatically covered under the named insured's policy. Reason B is not correct. Injuries outside the scope of the contractual operations do not grant additional insured status. Reason C is not correct. Coverage extends only to liability arising from the insured's operations, not unrelated customer injuries. Question 6. A manufacturer signs a 1-year lease for storage space and also enters into an agreement to assume liability under a 5-year equipment maintenance contract. Under the standard CGL policy, which contract qualifies as an insured contract? A. The 1-year lease of storage premises. B. The 5-year equipment maintenance agreement. C. A subcontractor indemnity for its own negligence. D. A service agreement assuming workers' compensation liabilities. The correct answer is A. Insured contracts include leases of premises for a term of 1 year or less. Longer-term maintenance and other indemnity contracts are excluded by policy definitions. Reason B is not correct. Equipment maintenance contracts beyond 1 year are excluded from the insured contract definition. Reason C is not correct. Indemnity for a subcontractor's own negligence is specifically excluded. Reason D is not correct. Assuming workers' compensation liabilities is not an insured contract under the CGL definitions. Question 7. Which of the following best describes the liability coverage insuring agreement under a personal auto policy? A. The insurer will pay damages and insured is legally obligated to pay for bodily injury or property damage arising from an auto accident. B. The insurer will reimburse the insured for physical damage to the insured vehicle caused by collision. C. The insurer will cover medical expenses of the insured regardless of fault in an accident. D. The insurer will defend the insured only against claims involving uninsured motorists. The correct answer is A. The insuring agreement for PAP liability coverage obligates the insurer to pay sums the insured is legally required to pay for bodily injury or property damage from covered auto accidents, up to the policy limits. Reason B is not correct. This describes collision, physical damage coverage, not liability for third-party losses. Reason C is not correct. Medical payments coverage pays medical expenses regardless of fault, not liability coverage. Reason D is not correct. Defense against uninsured motorist claims is part of uninsured motorist coverage, not liability. Question 8. Under a personal auto policy, which of the following is considered an insured? A. The named insured's spouse living in the same household. B. The owner of a loaner vehicle provided while the insured's vehicle is being repaired. C. An employee using the insured vehicle in the course of the employer's business. D. A person towing a historic trailer attached to the insured vehicle. The correct answer is A. The spouse of the named insured who resides in the same household is automatically designated an insured under the PAP definitions. Reason B is not correct. The loaner vehicle's owner is not insured under the named insured's policy. Reason C is not correct. Business use by an employee is excluded under the PAP's liability coverage. Reason D is not correct. A person towing a trailer is not automatically an insured under the PAP definitions. Question 9. A named insured under a personal auto policy purchases a 2021 pickup during the policy term. The policy declares coverage for a 2019 sedan with liability, medical payments, and uninsured motorist limits. Which statement best describes the automatic coverage for the newly acquired pickup? A. Collision damage for the new pickup is covered automatically for 14 days without additional premium. B. Liability, medical payments, and uninsured motorist coverage apply automatically to the new pickup for 14 days. C. All coverages, including comprehensive and collision, apply automatically to the new pickup for 30 days. D. No coverage is provided for the new pickup until the insurer is notified and additional premium is paid. The correct answer is B. The newly acquired pickup is automatically covered for liability, medical payments, and uninsured motorists for 14 days under the personal auto policy's newly acquired auto provision. Physical damage coverage requires endorsement. Reason A is not correct. Collision-only coverage is incorrect because liability, medical payments, and uninsured motorists are automatically included for 14 days. Reason C is not correct. 30 days is incorrect. Automatic coverage is limited to 14 days and does not include comprehensive unless endorsed. Reason D is not correct. No coverage until endorsement is incorrect because the policy grants 14 days of automatic liability, med pay, and uninsured motorist coverage. Question 10. During routine maintenance of his car, an insured borrows a neighbor's sedan. Under the personal auto policy's temporary substitute auto provision, which coverage applies while the neighbor's sedan is used? A. Physical damage coverage limited to collision losses only. B. Liability coverage only, excluding medical payments and uninsured motorists. C. Liability, medical payments, and uninsured motorist coverage identical to the insured vehicle. D. No coverage without a named non-owned auto endorsement. The correct answer is C. A temporary substitute auto is covered for the same liability, medical payments, and uninsured motorist coverages as the insured vehicle, without need for additional endorsement. Reason A is not correct. Physical damage only is incorrect, since collision limitation does not apply to liability and medical payments for substitute autos. Reason B is not correct. Liability only is incorrect because medical payments and uninsured motorists also apply to substitute autos. Reason D is not correct. No coverage statement is incorrect because no separate endorsement is required for temporary substitutes. Question 11. While operating a borrowed vehicle in an organized off-road race, an insured sustains injuries. Under the personal auto policy's medical payments coverage, which statement applies to this injury? A. Covered because any injury in a substitute auto is eligible for medical payments. B. Covered if the vehicle is not owned by the insured. C. Covered only if the insured is named on the loan agreement for the borrowed vehicle. D. Not covered because injuries from participation in an auto race are excluded. The correct answer is D. Medical payments coverage excludes injuries sustained while participating in an organized or professional racing or speed contest, so injuries from an off-road race are not covered. Reason A is not correct. Coverage for any substitute auto is incorrect because racing-related injuries are excluded. Reason B is not correct. Ownership of the vehicle is irrelevant when the injury arises from an excluded racing activity. Reason C is not correct. A loan agreement status does not override the exclusion for organized racing injuries. Question 12. Under the business auto policy, which symbol designates coverage that applies only to specifically described autos that are subject to compulsory financial responsibility laws? A. Symbol 3. Trailers the insured owns. B. Symbol 6. Owned autos subject to compulsory uninsured motorist law. C. Symbol 9. Non-owned autos only. D. Symbol 7. Specifically described autos subject to compulsory financial responsibility laws. The correct answer is D. This symbol applies exclusively to autos that have been individually listed on the policy and are required by law to maintain financial responsibility coverage. Reason A is not correct. That symbol provides coverage only for trailers owned by the insured, not for specifically described autos subject to compulsory laws. Reason B is not correct. That symbol covers owned autos under compulsory uninsured motorist requirements, and not specifically described autos for financial responsibility. Reason C is not correct. That symbol applies only to non-owned autos, rather than to specifically described autos that must meet financial responsibility laws. Question 13. Under the liability coverage of the business auto policy, which individual is considered an insured while operating a covered auto? A. An employee using a covered auto for personal errands with permission. B. A partner of a partnership named insured when driving a covered auto for business use. C. The named insured spouse when driving a non-owned auto with permission. D. A volunteer driving a personal vehicle for a charitable event. The correct answer is B. When the named insured is a partnership, each partner is an insured for liability coverage while operating any covered auto in the business of the partnership. Reason A is not correct. Employees are covered only when using a covered auto for business purposes, not personal errands. Reason C is not correct. Spouses are insured only when operating a covered auto, not a non-owned vehicle that isn't scheduled or symbolized for coverage. Reason D is not correct. Volunteers operating personal vehicles are not insured under the policy's liability coverage. Question 14. During an interstate shipment, a trucking company's insurer attempts to deny defense and indemnity for a third-party bodily injury claim, citing a liability exclusion in the commercial auto policy. The policy, however, includes an MCS90 endorsement, which best explains the insurer's obligation under the MCS90 endorsement. A. It requires the insurer to reimburse filing fees but does not obligate payment of damages. B. It obligates the insurer to pay covered public liability damages up to the endorsement limit, even if the policy excludes that liability. C. It limits the insurer's obligation to cover only attorney fees associated with the claim. D. It obligates the insurer to pay punitive damages but excludes compensatory damages. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is that the MCS90 endorsement obligates the insurer to pay covered public liability judgments and settlements up to its limits, despite policy exclusions, ensuring financial responsibility under federal motor carrier regulations. Reason A is not correct. The MCS90 endorsement is not limited to reimbursing filing fees. It mandates payment of damages for covered public liability claims. Reason C is not correct. The endorsement is not confined to covering only attorney fees. It includes payment of covered public liability damages. Reason D is not correct. The endorsement covers both compensatory and punitive damages up to its limits, not punitive damages only. Question 15. An auto repair shop's garage keeper's policy is written on a legal liability form. Overnight, a customer's vehicle parked in the shop's lot is damaged by a hailstorm. Under the legal liability form, which outcome is correct? A. The insurer pays for the hail damage without requiring proof of negligence. B. The insurer denies the hail damage as a weather exclusion. C. The insurer pays only if the damage resulted from the shop's negligence. D. The insurer pays for all physical damage regardless of fault. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is that the legal liability form only provides coverage when the insured is legally responsible for damage. So hail damage is covered only if negligence by the shop can be established. Reason A is not correct. Under a legal liability form, coverage is not granted without proof of insured negligence. Reason B is not correct. Hail is not a weather exclusion under the form. Coverage hinges on legal fault, not specific perils. Reason D is not correct. Coverage for all physical damage regardless of fault applies under a direct primary form, not a legal liability form. Question 16. Under the exclusive remedy doctrine in workers' compensation law, employees are generally prohibited from filing which type of action against their employer once benefits have been provided? A. Breach of contract actions. B. Tort-based negligence actions. C. Product liability actions. D. Claims for punitive damages. The correct answer is B. The exclusive remedy doctrine bars employees from suing their employers in tort for negligence once workers' compensation benefits have been paid, directing disputes to the workers' compensation system. Reason A is not correct. Breach of contract actions involve contract law rather than tort claims and are not covered by the exclusive remedy doctrine. Reason C is not correct. Product liability actions target manufacturers of defective products rather than claims against an employer under workers' compensation law. Reason D is not correct. Claims for punitive damages describe a remedy type, not a separate cause of action barred by the exclusive remedy doctrine. Question 17. Which type of workers' compensation benefit is designated for covering necessary medical services related to a work-related injury? A. Temporary total disability benefit. B. Medical indemnity benefit. C. Vocational rehabilitation benefit. D. Permanent partial disability benefit. The correct answer is B. Medical indemnity benefits under workers' compensation statutes cover all reasonable and necessary medical treatment related to a workplace injury. Reason A is not correct. Temporary total disability benefits provide wage replacement during recovery, not payment for medical expenses. Reason C is not correct. Vocational rehabilitation benefits focus on retraining and job placement services, not direct medical funding. Reason D is not correct. Permanent partial disability benefits compensate for lasting impairment rather than cover medical costs. Question 18. After suffering a repetitive stress injury, an employee sues their employer for $250,000 in damages. The employer's workers' compensation policy includes an employer's liability section with limits of $100,000 per employee for bodily injury by accident, $500,000 per employee for bodily injury by disease, and a $100,000 policy limit for all disease claims combined. Under the employer's liability section, how much will the insurer pay toward the bodily injury by accident claim? A. $500,000 per employee bodily injury by disease limit. B. $600,000 combined aggregate limit. C. $100,000 policy limit for all disease claims. D. $100,000 per employee bodily injury by accident limit. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is the per employee bodily injury by accident limit of $100,000, because this limit applies specifically to accident claims, whereas disease limits and aggregate disease limits do not apply to accident injuries. Reason A is not correct. The disease limit applies only to disease injuries, not accidental bodily injury by accident. Reason B is not correct. There is no combined aggregate limit of $600,000. Accident and disease limits do not combine for a single accident claim. Reason C is not correct. The aggregate disease limit covers only disease claims and cannot be applied to an accident injury claim. Question 19. A wholesale distributor in a state with a monopolistic workers' compensation fund secures statutory benefits through the state fund. An employee sues the employer alleging negligence, which falls outside the statutory workers' compensation benefits. To cover defense and liability in this third-party suit, which type of coverage must the distributor purchase? A. A stopgap liability endorsement added to the state workers' compensation coverage. B. Employer's liability coverage included in a commercial general liability policy. C. A standalone occupational accident insurance policy unrelated to workers' compensation. D. Employer's liability coverage under a business owner's policy endorsement. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is a stopgap liability endorsement because it provides employers' liability coverage in states requiring exclusive state fund workers' compensation, covering negligent acts not covered by statutory benefits. Reason B is not correct. Employers' liability coverage in a CGL policy is not available in monopolistic fund jurisdictions, where private liability coverage must attach to the workers' compensation policy. Reason C is not correct. Occupational accident insurance is not designed to cover employer negligence suits outside statutory workers' compensation benefits. Reason D is not correct. A business owner's policy endorsement does not provide the specialized employer's liability coverage required in monopolistic fund states. Question 20. Under the Employee Theft Coverage Form, Discovery Form, coverage is triggered by which of the following events? A. The actual occurrence of an employee theft during the policy period, regardless of when it is discovered. B. The first discovery during the policy period by a partner, officer, or department head of facts indicating an employee theft. C. Receipt by the insurer of written notice of a claim for employee theft during the policy period. D. The insured's termination of the suspected employee for misconduct occurring during the policy period. The correct answer is B. The discovery form triggers coverage when specified representatives of the insured first become aware of facts indicating employee theft during the policy period. The other options describe loss occurrence, claim reporting, or personnel actions, none of which activate coverage under the discovery trigger. Reason A is not correct. Refers to the loss sustained basis, not the discovery trigger used by this form. Reason C is not correct. Requires claim reporting to the insurer, but discovery by the insured initiates coverage under this form. Reason D is not correct. Employment termination does not initiate coverage under the discovery form. Enjoyed this practice test? Tap like, hit subscribe, and share it with a classmate. Got a question we should tweak? Comment below, we read them all. Find full practice exam books in the description or at ExamPrep.School.